Okay, Al-Ghazali Part 1, The Alchemy of Happiness. So, before we start, I kind of want to hear a little bit some of your, I didn't have a chance to look at your reading assignments, so I'm curious a little bit, what was your reaction to this text? What were some of the highlights? What were the things you liked? What were the things you didn't like? Or any things that you found strange? I just want to have a little bit of feedback from you before we get in the text. So, go ahead. Should I call names? I will. All right. Ojuma, you're first. One highlight. Give us one highlight. It could be a question or something you liked or whatever.
At least for me, I still struggle with like that idea, like not like how the text describes it, but just the idea of separating your mind from your heart. And I feel like they were trying to say that's a discipline, but in my head, the idea of a discipline is something that you train your mind to do. So on that aspect.
Okay, yes, very good, right? Because, I mean, we saw with the meditation we did how most of us are out of touch with our hearts, right? Think of the heart as where your emotions are. And let's ask ourselves, what kind of emotions wander around in our bodies usually? Are they positive or negative emotions, right? What emotions are in your heart? If your heart is very cluttered with negative emotions, you can't be happy, right? Right? You're just going to be. So this book is really trying to teach us how to declutter, and we're going to look at that today, how to declutter the heart. Because even if your mind is clear, it doesn't necessarily make you happy, right? What makes you happy is joy in your heart, right? So that's the idea here, is that, yeah, you can be super intelligent, you can be a mathematician, you can understand all of the structure of the universe, right? Your mind could be super good, super clear, but if your heart is full of negative emotions, how are you going to be happy? So this is what he's talking about, right? This is why he says we need to shift from the mind to the heart, because this is where happiness is at stake, right? Does that make sense, Ujuma? And today we'll talk about how do you declutter the heart so we can feel joy, right? We're going to talk about how that works. Lenera.
I was going to add on. One point I had in our conversation was I used the point in the first chapter. He writes, "What are we? Are we animals, angels, or devils?" And to me, when he described what each of those three things accomplish, is that we are kind of like we are the conductors of our heart, right? So we choose. I was telling him, we choose to get angry at certain things and react to certain ways, even if we feel like we're not in control. We're not in control of the bad things that happen to us. We're always in control of the way we react. And I thought that kind of relates to like your clutter point. And to me, it also, just to expand on that, it sounds like we have to find our own purpose here on Earth. And to me, it sounds like we choose that rather than it being told to us by, priest or a church giving us these laws. I feel like it's really more like we're in self-control of our happiness, and then we should, be the dictators of our lives.
Very good, right? What you said also connects to what we'll do with Epictetus, right? The idea that we can't control what happens to us, but we can control our reaction, right? And here we're going deeper. We can control our emotional response, and this is how we can therefore control our happiness. We don't have to be swept here and there. Oh, I'm depressed. Oh, I'm happy. Oh, now I'm depressed again, right? We can actually. Happiness is a virtue. This is something we are not really taught in our civilization. We tend to think happiness just comes if you're lucky. No, happiness is a virtue. You have to cultivate a certain attitude in order to get that happiness, right? So we'll see that. So very good. Let's see. Azera, anything? I know you didn't really have time to read this. Did you read anything at all, or? Okay, so let's keep you. Castro, did you read anything?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us what any point that you found interesting.
Yeah, so I really like this analogy that he made. I mean, he made several throughout like the text, but mostly about our bodies functioning as a horse and our souls are there for the ride too. Another thing that I really like from the text is when he was talking about getting rid of obsessive passion or resentment.
Yes.
Because that's kind of what getting rid of those things is kind of will purify our soul. Or he also talks a lot about heart here, or like our differentiating between our physical heart and our actual heart,
yes.
our actual being and all that.
Absolutely.
And I related a lot to when he was saying about getting rid of resentment.
Yeah.
I think that purifies all of us almost. And yeah, that's what I like the most about the whole thing for sure.
Yeah, very good, right? You can have bad things happen to you, but you don't have to let these things poison your existence, right? So we'll talk about how to do that. And Castro, you already we did some of it. Castro, sorry, Ramos. We already, I keep on mixing up.
Nietzsche?
Huh? Yes, we did not Nietzsche, but we did a little bit of the purification of the heart with Rumi, right? So you'll have a little bit of a playback, right? Okay, Pak, did you read a little bit? Anything come up for you?
Um, yeah, I like this one quote where it was like, someone may hear object, but if man has been created with animals, not qualities, as well as each other, however, we know that the latter constitutes the essence or former, are merely accidental and transitory.
Yeah, good. We'll talk exactly about this quote today. So, what is accidental? What is essential? What does that mean? Right? Very good quote, Pak, actually, central. Critchell? Oh, yeah, that's right. Ramos?
Yeah, so similar to what Lanera said, also a quote was demonic, angelic, or animal qualities result in the production of corresponding characteristics. Sort of like goes together and saying, like, do we sort of decide our own fate or who we are, or how we sort of walk about life, you know? But one of the things that I found interesting was that there's a lot of similarities between, like, philosophical thought. It was sort of the same thing as, like, knowledge of God and finding God within and purification of the heart and, you know, are we animals, are we angels, and, you know, all that. So I found that, and Nietzsche as well with the passion and the resentment
Right, yes.
and stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're already ahead of us with Nietzsche because she's doing it in another class right now, but not the same text.
Yeah.
Okay, Bukari has her hand up. Go ahead, Bukari.
So on page 14, I saw when I was reading, it says knowledge can never be a key to the knowledge of God. So that was actually my first question that I had for the reading assignment.
I like that.
And I was saying that we can't actually see or hear God like physically. We wouldn't know like what knowledge he has. So it's like it would be impossible for us to find out like what knowledge he has. So that's what I was wondering from the text.
So yeah, I love that quote because I had forgotten it, but now it's going. Everybody turn to page 14, the first line, right? Knowledge of self is the key to the knowledge of God. This is a very profound quote, actually. And then it goes on, he who knows himself knows God. Anyone want to interpret why the knowledge of self is the key, opens a door into the knowledge of God? Anybody want to interpret that for Bukhari and I?
Sorry. Maybe it's trying to say that being able to acknowledge the bigger self rather than your smaller self sort of opens this dimension to knowing who God truly is, or at least your truer self.
Yeah, absolutely right. This is part of this long tradition we've been studying in this class, right? That God is within, right? And so once you access your within, you access God. The problem with us is we're never accessing our within. We're so busy out there trying to make a name for ourselves. We never take time to access the within, and therefore we lose access. We lose the key to this eternal dimension which inhabits us, right? And we've seen this idea with the Upanishads, and also the Gospel of John makes the same emphasis, right, on the fact that God is within, and we're missing this access if we're too engrossed in the outside stuff, right? So this reminded me of the image of the meditation video I sent you, right, where you have the key and then did you see that meditation video with the flute? Only one of you did it, I think. Who was it? It was one of the meditation videos that we watched, had a picture of a girl with a key opening up kind of a window into her heart, and then in that window there was like, you could see the moon, right? So this is very beautiful image, very illustrative of this. Yes, Leonard.
To add on to what Gina said, this quote says, he who knows himself knows God. To me, it sounds like if you don't know yourself, you're kind of being deceitful, right, in a way. If you don't know your true self, then you're not really being the most truthful person you know. But then it says that over here, are signs in the world, and in them, that the truth may manifest to them. So to me, it sounds like God is the truth. Like, so therefore, you can't know God or the truth without knowing yourself. and your own truth.
Exactly, right? To know the true self is to access this deeper dimension. And then, of course, you know God, right? So thank you, Bokhari. Nice. You're always good with quotes, Bokhari. I noticed already. It's the second time you bring out a great quote. Okay, great. Dib, anything you want? Did you do the reading? Anything struck you as interesting in the reading?
Yeah, I did the reading, and most of all, I liked his the symbolism with the kingdom relating to the body and everything. It was a little bit difficult figuring out which part was which with the organs and the policemen of anger, but overall, I think the concept was really interesting.
Okay, excellent. Yes, very nice. Very poetic, right? And finally, Nasiri, anything stuck out at you?
One thing I found interesting was on page 18, where he says that there are souls which attain a special degree of power that not only rule their own body but those of others also.
Nice.
And I found that interesting because I grew up practicing Islam, and I was always taught that, like, I don't know, the way it sounds like to me is like, it's like a special power, and I was taught that magic or like psychic abilities or anything like that is like related to the devil. So found it interesting that he would say that, and wondered like how certain souls get this power.
Interesting. Yeah, I would have to read for. I want to go. I want to read it a little like again because it surprises me also that a Muslim writer would say anything good about sorcery. So I have to go over that. So let me go over that after class. This was Sami, I don't know what page, but yeah. So I'm also curious, Nasiri, about this. I'm gonna read it again later. Okay, let's get into the text. Let me first say a few words about the title of this book. This is a very beautiful title, The Alchemy of Happiness. In fact, is the title that made me buy the book. So, okay, anybody know what alchemy is? It's very important to understand what he's doing. Anybody can tell us anything about alchemy, Ojima?
Isn't alchemy like an ancient science
Mhm.
used to basically be like the answer to the world?
Yes, and what were they trying to do? What was their main purpose?
I'm not sure. I know that it's very popular to say that alchemy is used to put like lead into gold.
Exactly, right? That was the main purpose. So alchemy is the pre-chemistry, right? This is the chemistry in the medieval times. So they were already experimenting with, substances and combining them and making little combustions, trying things out. But alchemy was much more than chemistry. Alchemy was actually a spiritual path, right? So the alchemists actually outwardly they would say we're trying to transform lead into gold, but what they were really talking about is an inward journey, right? Is an inner journey. So a lot of the alchemists were also mystics, right? So outwardly, they would tell the population or the masses, we're trying to transform lead into gold. And they were, right? They were working on that, trying to put lead in a crucible and then try to add little substances, see if they can purify it successively until it is as pure as gold, right? So there was that. But really, this whole thing they were doing was really just a metaphor or a parable for the inner journey of the soul, right? So they really believe that as a soul, we have to learn to transform the lead within ourselves into gold. That's alchemy. So when he's talking about the alchemy of happiness, he's talking about an inner combustion or an inner chemical reaction taking place within the heart. And our hearts usually are filled with lead, right? Everybody knows what lead is, right? It's very dense metal, right? Very heavy. It's just not, it's the opposite of pure. It's very dense. So most of our hearts, right, if we look within, there's a lot of lead, right? There's a lot of sorrow or anger or resentment or trauma or pain, right? And we're just carrying that, right? As long as we carry that, we cannot be happy and so much more. We'll talk about that. But he's saying it is possible to make the heart go through successive combustions and successive transformations until we have transformed this lead into gold. So this is really an inner journey. And this book is really going to teach us, give us the guidelines how to do this to our own hearts. Because for the alchemists, for the Sufis, right, which Al-Ghazali is a part of, the heart, let's remember, is the place where God dwells, right? Is the throne of God. If it is full of lead, there can be no divine light coming through. And so your life remains dark, right? But the moment that you purify the lead, the divine light can begin to seep through into your life And this is the definition of joy, right? If the divine light is seeping through and being filtered through your heart into your body, right? This is the definition of joy and peace and love, right? And again, one doesn't have to be a Sufi or a Muslim or even a Christian or a Jew to experience this, right? This is, you purify the heart, automatically it happens, because we are all, as human beings, carriers of this divine presence, right? Whether we believe in God or not, we are carriers of this divine presence. And it's just a question of how pure is your heart, right? And that is what will determine how happy you are, right? So we have to learn how, this is the million-dollar question for this text, right? How do we purify the heart? What is the technique? Okay, so that's in essence, right? Now, let's go look a little bit into the text itself, some of the terminology and so forth, and just get a few quotes, and then we'll talk about the very important practice of forgiveness, which is really what he's talking about here. Okay, so first of all, let's remind ourselves that any Sufi view is going to be influenced by, remind me, three main influences of Sufism. What are they? Let's see if you remember what we talked about last time. What are the three main strands that go into the Sufi worldview? So for sure, the first one, obvious, religion. Guys?
Islam.
Thank you. Islam, obviously, right, from the text. What's the second influence? Second religion that is influencing Sufism? Christianity, absolutely. And we know this, right? This idea of God within is a Christian idea. It didn't come from the Upanishads. Nobody read the Upanishads at that time, right? So this is a Christian idea that the Sufis took over. This idea of God within we didn't study it when we did the Gospel of John, but this is one of the main teachings. And then which philosophy is also feeding into Sufism? Remind me. Yeah, Plato, right? Absolutely. So let's remind ourselves briefly about Plato, because to understand Sufism, we have to understand the Platonic worldview. And then we'll get into the text, right? So for Plato, did we talk about the story of the cave? Did we do this here? Okay. You or them? Because did you guys do this? She's taking another class. So there's overlap. So did y'all do, Pritchell, maybe you did at one point with me, right? Because you took some classes.
That was the other class.
But we didn't do it actually here, right? Okay, brief story. Okay, this is a story that Plato tells, which is really a story about the human condition. And he says this. He says, we are all like prisoners in a cave, bound and chained in this cave in a way that we can only look to the back of the cave. So we can't turn around, we can't move, we can't get up. We're sitting, chained, in a way that our eyes are fixed to the back of the cave. Now, in the mouth of the cave outside, there's everyday life going on. And then there happens to be a big fire which is projecting the shadows of all that is going on outside of the cave onto the back wall of the cave. So these people, us, right, sitting here looking at shadows and thinking this is reality. Everybody clear on this first part? Okay. Now one day, one of them is able to get free somehow. Maybe goes on a hunger strike and is able to be so skinny, he kind of slides out of the chains. And he decides, I'm going to turn around, I'm going to figure out what's at the outside, right? So he turns around, and at first he's blinded by the light, right? He's used to seeing shadows. He's not used to seeing real light. But he perseveres. He kind of, crawls out of the cave. He gets to the edge. It's now, at this point, it's just cruelly hurting his eyes. Slowly his eyes adjust. And of course, when he opens his eyes, finally, he realizes, oh my goodness, this is true reality. I have been living in a world of shadows. This is the true reality, right? And so what does this tell us, right? I forgot. Then he goes back in the cave, tries to get everybody else out, but nobody wants to listen to him. They're like, shh, be quiet. We're trying to watch the shadows, shh, right? And they basically shut him down. They either they chain him back up, or they throw him out of the cave, or they kill him. I forget the actual ending, but it's dramatic, right? And so this is, for Plato, the human condition. Now, can anybody explain to me what this means? What is he saying? Yes.
Basically saying that our reality is just what we see, and that while it may not be the true reality, we tend to dispute or go against anything that we do not understand with our comprehension.
Okay, very good, right? Plato is saying something we've been talking about the whole semester, right? most of us think true reality is what we see, feel, touch, and we are not aware of another reality, of a deeper reality, of a deeper spiritual reality. For Plato, it's a more intellectual reality, right? And the Sufis agree with Plato on that point, right? They're saying how sad it is that all we think is real is what we can see, hear, touch, and taste, right? We are missing out, they say, on this deeper reality, this deeper dimension, which is part of the human condition, but most of us are completely oblivious to it. Why? Because we are disconnected from the gate to this dimension, which for the Sufis is the heart, right? So that's just putting the Sufism in context, right? All right, so now let's look into this notion of the heart, right? So here we have, so I love the first quote, right, that Bukhari mentioned. Knowledge of the self is key to the knowledge of God. Basically, if you're able to access this deeper part of yourself, which is the true knowledge of yourself, this is the entryway into the knowledge of God. The path to God is through ourselves. It's not in the scripture. It's not what the rabbi told you. It's not what the priest is, the rituals of the priests. The path, the gateway is within us, right? And so let's look at this gateway, which is often suffering from clutter. So let's go to page 16. Go to the first paragraph and the last sentence, which is the aim of moral discipline. Are you there? Who is there? Just raise your hand if you're there, if you're with me. First paragraph, last sentence, the aim of moral discipline. Is anybody there? Nobody? You there? Okay, one more person. Okay, thank you. All right, so this gateway, often cluttered with, we saw already, right, all the passion, the resentment, right, the anger and so forth. And so he says this, right, the aim of moral discipline is to purify the heart from the rust of passion and resentment till, like a clear mirror, it reflects the light of God, right? In other words, this is the aim of this book. How do we alchemize the rust of passion and resentment? And here we have to understand passion differently from Nietzsche, right, Ramos? This is just the negative emotions, right, which overwhelm us, right? We have to purify that until, like a mirror, right, it reflects into our bodies, right, or it filters the light of God, right? So then he continues, right, and he says, actually, we have to, in order to do this, we need to be able to distinguish in our hearts what is essentially ours and what is accidentally ours. So let me go over these two concepts, essence and accident. This is from Aristotle. This terminology is from Aristotle, right? So let me explain. For Aristotle, every being is made up of both essence and accidents. So let's see what that means. So I will give you, illustration with a bottle, right? Okay, this bottle, essential, what is it essentially supposed to do? A bottle. Contain water, right? That's essential. If it doesn't contain water, it's not a bottle, correct? If it's like, and if the water coming out, it's not, if it's like, like a hose, no, it's supposed to contain. Now, if the bottle is red, is it still a bottle? Okay, if the bottle is square, is it still a bottle? If the bottle is wooden, is it still a bottle? Okay, you see the difference between essence and accidents? The accidents are red, wooden, square. All the attributes of the bottle which are not essential are called accidents, right? Not like a car accident, but simply they're accidental. They're not essential. Accidental means the opposite of essential. Accidental means non-essential. So the attribute that is essential to the bottle is that it must contain water. It must be some kind of a recipient shape. That's essential attribute. But the attribute of redness, the attribute of wooden, these are accidental attributes, right? So now he goes to the heart. And now this becomes very interesting what he's doing here, right? Let me find the quote. Yes. So page 14. So what he's saying in essence, when he's bringing up this notion of essential and accidental, he's saying we need to be able to filter in our hearts what is us and what is not us. Now, this is so important because most of us, the reason, and I hope you're listening because this is so important, the reason we get stuck in negativity is we think the negativity is essential and I need to hang on to it. Otherwise, I'm not going to be fully myself. I'll give you 1,000 examples of how we do this, right? We have the anger and we say, but I'm supposed to be angry. Angry is the way that I'm going to make a way for myself in the world. Angry is the way I'm going to push and find, right, and make things happen. So we are thinking our anger now is essential to me, right? Or sadness, I have to be sad, otherwise I couldn't be an artist, right? If I'm not sorrowful, how can I paint, right? The things that I'm painting. So we're not hanging on to our sorrow and our sadness because we're thinking it's making me more artistic, right? Or resentment. Well, if I'm not resentment, everybody gonna call me a pushover. I gotta keep this resentment and this vengeful spirit so I don't become a pushover ever again and nobody ever hurts me again. I'm hanging on to it. This is essential to me. From now on, I must carry this with me. It must become a part of me. Do you see how we are hanging on to these negative emotions? Or, you know, this was really a thing in the early 20th century. This idea that you have to be, you know, kind of depressed to be a good writer or to be a good painter, to be right. It's still a little bit now, maybe less in the United States where everybody always trying to be happy, right? But in like if you come from Europe, it's a very cool thing to be depressed. Right? If you're not depressed, you're an idiot, right? So we have an expression in French for people who are happy for no reason. We call them happy imbeciles, imbécile heureux. It's like if somebody's going around happy and we don't know like why the hell are they so happy all the time, we call them an idiot in France, because it's just, you got to be stupid to be this happy, right? So but here's, right, so here's a little more, we're a little more accepting of positivity, but still, one can hang on to some of these negative emotions and make it a part of yourself because you think you're not going to be able to make a way in the world without my resentment, without my anger, without my sadness. I'm not going to be who I'm supposed to be, right? So he's saying we need to therefore learn to distinguish what is me and what is not me. You know, it's so easy to become friends with our demons. I don't know if you have some demons. I had a few. I got rid of them. But we all have these demons that we kind of like actually feel quite comfortable with. Like, you know how you have this mood swing and you kind of like sink into it and it feels a little bit good to feel all messed up, right? This is the idea. We become familiar with our demons and they become a part of us and we don't think we can live without them or be the soulful person we are without them. And Ghazali is saying, be careful, you need to sift what is essential, what is inessential, right? He says this here. Let's look at page 14, go up from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8. Some of thy attributes are those of animals, some of devils, some of angels, and thou hast to find out which of these attributes are accidental and which are essential, right? We are inhabited by animal passions, by angelic ideas, by demonic thoughts, right? We are big playground for different forces, and he's saying before we think this force is us, we need to begin to distinguish what do I want to keep and what do I not want to keep, right? And of course, we're going to find out later, right, that the accidental is the negativity, right, and the essential is the light of God, right? This is the highest part of our heart, is the part which reflects the divine light. It's not the part which harbors resentment. The heart does both. The heart harbors resentment, and the heart, and all scam, you know, I'm getting like every hour a call from some whatever. I don't pick up anymore. Anyways, so the heart does two things, right? It harbors resentment and it reflects the light of God. And the problem with us is we think we can do both, right? And so he's saying we have to learn to distinguish. So let's look a little bit more about this essence, essential business. Where's the thing with? Yes, page 16. I had this quote about the highest, where is it? I don't see it. Ah, yeah, here it is. Okay, so let's read from page 16, the last paragraph. Someone may here object, but if a man has been, are you there? Last paragraph of 16? Make sure, okay. Someone may here object, but if the man has been created with animal and demonic qualities as well as angelic, how are we to know that the latter, the angelic, constitute his real essence, while the former, the demonic and the animal, are merely accidental and transitory, right? And some of us, honestly, there's a lot of us in this world who actually think the demonic qualities are good. And the animal qualities, right, are good too. So he's trying to help us distinguish which ones we should sift out, right? To this I answer, that the essence of each creature is to be sought in that which is highest in it and peculiar to it. Thus, the horse and the donkey are both burden-bearing animals, but the superiority of the horse to the donkey consists in being adapted for the use in battle. If it fails in this, it becomes degraded to the rank of burden-bearing animals. So are you understanding the argument? He's saying, how do we find the essence, right? We are full of different forces. How do we know which one is essential to us? He says we have to look at the thing which distinguishes us from others, right? For example, he compares a horse to a donkey, and he says, okay, they're both, kind of on all fours. They both have, nice eyes, so they look similar. So what makes the horse different from the donkey? What makes the horse essentially a horse is not the four legs, it's not, right, the crane or whatever, is the fact that, what is it? What does a horse do? Yes, it can go to battle, right? The donkey can't. So this is essentially what is the horse is. It's a war animal, whereas the donkey is just a burden-bearing animal. So the horse is distinguished from the donkey. Both can bear burdens, but the horse is different in that only the horse can go to battle. The donkey cannot. This is what makes it higher than the donkey, and therefore it's essential. Then he continues, similarly with man. The highest faculty in him is reason, which fits him for contemplation of God. If this predominates in him, when he dies, he leaves behind all tendencies to passion and resentment, and so forth. As regards his mere animal qualities, man is actually inferior to many animals. That's true. If we look at our animal self, meaning we hunger, we thirst, we're tired, like all animals, right? At the same time, we're not that good at getting food, right, by ourselves. So we're a little lower than the animals when it comes to being just an animal, right? If we didn't have reason and you throw us in the jungle, we're going to be the weakest, most pathetic being in there, right? Because we have no claws, we have no big jaws, we can't run fast, so we're nobodies when it comes to our animal selves. We're the most inferior version of the animals, right? But he says this, but reason makes him superior to them, as it is written in the Quran, to man we have subjected all things. So reason is what distinguishes us from the animals, and therefore reason is what is essential to us, right? Now we have to understand what he means by reason. So he continues. Now the rational soul in man abounds in marvels both of knowledge and power. So on the one hand, right, so Ojuma, you're right. He seems to be blending the intellect with the heart here, right? Because he's saying it abounds in knowledge and power. You master the arts, the sciences, and everything, right? You have technology, you have the five senses, right? But more wonderful than this, his heart has a window which opens on the unseen world of spirits, right? So I think he's blending in reason. He's putting the brain and the heart. But the heart, not the pumping heart, right? The heart as a window. So he's saying we have two dimensions to this reason. We have a dimension which is the one which produces the arts, the sciences, technology. And then we have an even deeper dimension, which is the part of us which accesses God himself, right? So he's, yes?
When he said we must see what stands out in us, is that compared to other humans or is that
Other animals.
other beings?
Right, he's trying to find out. So this is basically the issue. In us, we have animal parts, demonic parts, angelic parts, right? So he's trying to say which part is the part that is really us, right? So the demonic he doesn't go into, I think, but he compares. So then he's like, how do we find what is essential? Well, here's how we do it. We compare and we see that which distinguishes us is what is essential, right? If we share the same characteristics, it's not essential to us, right? So he does the example with the donkey and the horse and shows that the horse essentially is a battle animal, right? Not a burden-bearing animal. So now he does the same with us with regards to the animals. Are we essentially animalistic, or are we essentially more than animalistic, right? So he says, well, if we were just animalistic, this is not what distinguishes us. I mean, in other words, as animals, we're not great animals, right? We're not so good, right? It's not really, doesn't seem to be our best point, right? But he says what distinguishes us, what helps us rise up is that we have this reason. So essentially, we are rational creatures, right? And that's what we need to focus on. But the way he defines reason is as this kind of vessel which contains the light of God, right? So that's what we need to tend to, not the animal. So that we need to separate ourselves from the animal passions, separate ourselves from the demonic, and cultivate the mind, which is the vessel of God, because it is essential to us. It is what distinguishes us from the animal realm. Are you following?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's the idea, right? He's trying to convince us, or trying to show us, how do we sift through these different forces in our hearts? And he's saying, well, we have to see what is the true us. Is it the animal? Is it the demon? Or is it the angel? So he's like, to find the true us, we have to find what distinguishes us from everything else. And what distinguishes us is this reason, which simply means, in this context, reason is not your brain pumping up information. Reason is the vessel for the light of God, right? So he says that is what distinguishes us. That's what we have to focus on. We have to tend to that. And anything that goes against that, we need to kind of push to the sidelines, right? So that's the idea. Okay, so yes. So now we get into the crux of the matter in 10 minutes. Can I have 5 minutes extra, please, today, please? 5 minutes extra. So until 30. Can I teach until 30? Yes, we're good? Critchell?
Okay.
Doubtful. It's just 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you, Bokari. Okay. Because what I want to do now is, now that we've established that we have this dimension and that it's what we should focus on, how do we purify the heart? That is the question, right? How do we go about? Because it's easy to say, oh, purify your heart, but you can look inside and be like, go away, and it's going to stay. And by the way, most of us don't even want to purify the heart. This is one of the issues, right? We want to feel resentful. And we want to have this long hatred for that person for years, right? So how do we go about purifying the heart so that we can become a channel for the divine light, and so that we can be happy, right? Okay, so for this, I want to do a little workshop, which I've done with a few of you already. I think, Rachel, you must have been in that class also where we did the workshop on forgiveness. If you took philosophy of religion. Yeah, but you forgot. Good, so now you have to stay. Okay, good. So a few of you probably took it already, but I always do this in my classes because this, in my view, is the most important skill to have as a human being. So, forgiveness. Let's talk about that a little bit. So we all know that, or we've been told, you have to forgive, you have to blah, blah, blah. And most of us, number one, we feel we shouldn't have to forgive, especially if the person didn't ask for forgiveness. Why should I forgive them? That's number one, objection, right? Number two, we don't know how. I want to forgive you, but I hate you so much, like I don't think I can. It's there. I can't get rid of it, right? So two objections, right? We are told by the church or the synagogue or whatever, our parents, forgive. But number one problem, what did I say? I'm blanking out. What did I say? Ramos, please. Number one, you're just laughing at me. What was the number one problem to forgiving? See if you're listening. Thank you.
Oh.
If the person hasn't asked for forgiveness, or if they don't deserve your forgiveness, right? Why should I forgive them? That's the first objection. Second objection, I don't know how. I feel there's so much hatred for this person, so much resentment, I don't even know where to begin, how to get rid of it. I'm so full of it. If I start, it's going to overwhelm me, and I'm just going to go and kill them, right? So this is one of the, so it's so sad the way that this concept has been taught in such a unrigorous way, where we don't even know what it is or how to do it, right? And why we should do it. That's the main thing. We don't know how, we don't know what it is, and we don't know why, right? So today I want to clarify this so that we can become a little better at that, and therefore begin to cleanse our hearts. So forgiveness is a very ancient concept, actually comes from the Hebrew tradition, which predates Islam and Christianity by thousands of years. And one of the words for forgiveness in the Hebrew is nasa, N-A-S-A, the transliteration, right? N-A-S-A, nasa. Huh? Yes, there's only two. Why should I forgive, and how? And we don't know what it is either, which is connected to the how, right? So we have these two main questions. Why should I do it, and how do I do it? Well, what is it? How does it work? Okay. Yes, just keep to those two. That's the important. Okay, so nasa, what does it mean? Literally, that word simply means to carry. So that's interesting. Okay, forgiveness means to carry. That doesn't sound very helpful or happy, right? Here I am carrying your the thing you did to me, yeah, definitely am, right? So it can't mean that, right? But let's go a little further and examine, first of all, what is our natural reaction when somebody hurts us, right? Ojuma, someone punches you in the face, what is your natural reaction?
Anger.
Yes, and what else?
You Your immediate response is to inflict pain, similar to what they did to you.
Yes, find a way to, either you punch them back if you're good at this, right? Or you're going to find a way to, tell somebody and make their lives impossible, or have some kind of, right? Immediate reaction to being hurt is hurting back. Make sure you write this down. This is natural impulse. Immediate reaction to being hurt is I'm going to hurt you back somehow. Either I'm going to hurt you back in the world, right? I'm going to do something to you, or I'm going to hurt you back inside. I'm going to become angry, resentful. I'm going to hate you. I'm going to never talk to you again. I'm going to cut you off somehow. I'll talk to you, but inside we're done, right? So we have both external and internal ways to throw the hurt back, right? Either I'm going to hurt you for real in the world, or I'm going to hurt you inside by hating you for the rest of my life, right? And by not having one sentiment of love towards you for the rest of my life. So when we do this, we're basically reflecting the hurt back, right? Now, we can better understand what it means to carry. What does it mean to carry instead of reflecting? What do you think the verb actually means now, to carry? Now that we know what we usually do when we reflect it back. What does it mean to carry? Yes?
I feel like if you lack forgiveness, you ultimately carry the weight of pain and guilt throughout your life.
So that's the bad way of understanding carrying, because the forgiveness can't be about carrying the weight of it, right? So this is a different understanding of carrying, which should be illuminated by what I said about we tend to throw the suffering back. So what then does it mean to carry in the good sense, in the sense of forgiving? Ojima?
It's not about trying to get the pain back. I feel like it could be about holding on to the pain and bettering yourself out of it.
Okay, exactly, right? It's not holding on, it's simply receiving it, absorbing it. So we have to see how that works, right? But for now, we know that instead of forgiving is basically a decision you make that you're not going to throw back the suffering, you're going to absorb it. Now we have to learn how to absorb it, because it can't mean that you're going to be like all traumatized and have, nervous tics for the rest of your life or some physical illness because you've absorbed it, right? No. But for now, we know that the movement of forgiveness is a movement like this versus like this, right? Instead of throwing it back, you absorb it, you receive it without throwing it back, right? Now, here's what it looks like, right? For example, somebody punches you in the face. That's terrible. I just had a visual. Somebody punches you in the face, and instead of punching back, you take a deep breath, you find your center, and you walk away. That's forgiveness. Okay, so it's not even some Christian thing, right? It's a very dignified attitude towards wrongdoing, right? So let's go further into why this is important, right? Why should I do it, right? Why should I do it? Actually, before I go into the why, let me explain a little further. What we're learning here when we choose to absorb the pain rather than throw it back is we're learning, and this is the key here, we are learning not to let the pain become toxic within us. We are learning not to let the pain change us into a bad person. We absorb the pain without allowing that pain to become poisonous, either outside or inside, right? So you get punched in the face, that's painful, and that's okay. You can survive that, no damage done. After a few days, it's gone. But what is the damage here is what you do with the pain, right? So let me emphasize this. The pain can never damage you. It's what we do with the pain that damages us. The pain you punched in the face, okay, a few days later, your face is normal. But the damage is what you have done with that pain. Have you allowed that pain to become a vengeful action into the world? Have you allowed that pain to make you as bad as the wrongdoer? Have you allowed that pain to transform in your body into resentment or vengeance, right? This is where the true damage occurs, what we do with the pain. So the art of receiving the pain without allowing the pain to without allowing that pain to be thrown back, either inside or outside, is the act of forgiveness. Are you following? Mm-hmm. So basically, to forgive right, is simply not to allow the pain to become toxic within yourself, right? It's not allowing what happened to you to poison you and to make you into a poisonous person, which will then poison the world back, right? That's the idea. So now if we understand forgiveness like this, as basically I'm choosing, yes, you did this to me, but I'm not going to become like you, right? I'm going to stay myself, dignified, loving, compassionate. I'm not going to let you change me into who you are, right? We are remaining very centered into our true self, right? At that moment, you're forgiving, right? So you can see now how you don't even need someone to ask for forgiveness to do this, right? Because this is something you're doing for you, right? So the first reason, right, why we forgive, first reason for ourselves. Why? What is good about forgiving when it, remind me, let's review. Why would you forgive for yourself? First, they didn't recognize what they did. They didn't ask for your forgiveness. But the first reason you forgive is for you. Why is that, Ramos? You know.
To allow yourself to sort of develop in the pain and the suffering, sort of like take the good parts from it, and allow yourself to sort of be a better you.
Right, or you maintain your better you, right? You don't allow the pain to change you into something worse than what you were. You know what I'm saying? So this is different from the pain that comes through trials of life, right? That pain you can grow from. And to a certain degree, you can grow from pain someone does to you. But the main idea here is keeping your true self in the face of pain, not allowing yourself to be transformed into their evil twin, right? Did you notice how when two countries go at war, and this is very tragic, we go to war with a country, and we do this in the States. We go to protect, you know, democracy, human rights, whatever. And after a few years of fighting, you cannot even distinguish the two parties. They are both committing the same atrocities. They're both committing the same war crimes, and we start to look like our opponent. It's very tragic, right? When you go to war, eventually, if you fight long enough, you start to look exactly like what you're fighting against. Really study it, and you will see it. Any war we fought, we start to look like this, right? So this is the issue, right? Are you going to be shifted to look like your opponent, or are you going to stay yourself, right? So the first reason why we forgive, even when they don't deserve it, even when they haven't asked for forgiveness, for me, so I can remain, this is a conscious choice I'm making to not let this pain alter me into a poisonous person. I'm not letting what you did to me change me into somebody lower than who I really am, into somebody toxic and poisonous, which is not who I am. I'm maintaining my integrity, I'm maintaining my dignity, I'm maintaining my capacity to love. I'm not becoming hateful, resentful, and vengeful. I choose for me. Right? Now, this one is trickier. It's a little more metaphysical. Why else, or for who else do we forgive? Who else benefits from the act of forgiveness? Yes.
The person that hurt us.
And how do they benefit? Because they don't know, right, that we're doing this.
Well,
how do they
to
benefit?
me, if a non-reaction to someone who has a toxic mindset and when they're hurt, they take anger at someone else. For me, the biggest, or like the greatest vengeance that I get against that person is to be non-reactionary. Because what they want is for you to be as angry as they are.
So now you're doing them wrong by being non-reactionary.
Well, you're not doing them wrong, is that you're not allowing them to manifest their anger in more ways than it has to be.
So how is it good?
Showing them that the pain can be endured without hurting someone else.
And how is this good for them? Tell me.
Because it teaches them that what they're doing is wrong.
Okay, so in a way, yes. One first reason why forgiveness is good is in a way that person will see, oops, and it happens.
Well,
to,
the thing is,
yeah.
those types of people who take their anger on other people, they really think that they're doing something right in that moment. They think that, oh, my anger is manifesting in me. Let me just get it out any way I can.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And usually it's like road rage or yelling at someone in public or yelling at some manager who has nothing to do with you. And we see that as, oh, I'm sticking to that person because they didn't wear a mask in Trader Joe's or whatever. So I screamed at them because it made me feel good. But in reality, it's to them, they think it's right. But to everybody else who's not involved in it, they realize how terrible that is.
I see what you're saying. Yes, if I yell at someone and they don't yell back, I'm immediately going to feel like a complete jerk, right? So that's the first effect. But there's a deeper effect, very profound. effect of forgiving someone, even when they don't know you. See, right there, they're seeing you forgive, right? So they can get a visual. But even when they don't know you're forgiving them, what is the thing that they can receive at that moment without knowing? And this is kind of metaphysical. So you have to be, if you remember what we said in class, you can say it. You don't remember.
Not really.
This is good review for you. Good. You're very close. Have you heard of the concept of karma? Have you heard of the concept of karma? How,
Yes.
you know, what comes around goes around, right? That song by, what's his face again? I keep on forgetting his name. Justin Timberlake, right? Remember that really good, great song he did after, was it Britney? Who, was it Britney that he was singing about? Anyways, he did this amazing, you know this song, right? We're not that far apart generationally. Okay. What comes around goes around. Very beautiful song, right? So any bad action you do in this world, you're going to get some kind of consequence down the line. This is the law of karma, right? Well, when you forgive someone, you wipe away their karma. This actually happens. You have the power, when you forgive someone, to clear their karmic debt, right? So they don't know it, but they're not going to suffer the consequences for what they did to you, right? When you forgive. So it's actually, and most of us, to be honest, we're not ready to. Like, I'm okay with forgiving you, but I do want you to pay for what you did to me. So, but really, this is one of the profound metaphysical effects of forgiveness on the other, is that it actually clears their karmic debt, right? Whatever bad thing was supposed to happen, if karma exists, right? This is assuming that this law of karma is real, right? I don't know, right? But assuming, I'm just giving you the image so you can really see what's going on. The act of forgiveness can give them a clean slate, basically. You're giving them a clean slate. You're clearing their karma. Whatever bad thing was supposed to happen as a result of what they did to you is gone, right? This is one of the most profound effects of forgiveness. And finally, yes?
Oh, no, I was just gonna ask, how do they get to assuming that because I don't necessarily understand it.
Me neither. I just know this is how forgiveness is explained in the Hebrew Bible. Is explained in the sense that when you have texts like your sins will be as white as snow and I will throw them into the sea. So this is God forgiving, right? So in a way, when God forgives, we know that it's gone, right? Mm-hmm. The consequence, the effect, it's like we didn't do it. So when we forgive, it has a similar power, right? We have this God-given power to shift the karmic. Just like, so that's the structure of forgiveness when I read the Hebrew Bible, when I read the text about God forgiving us. But what is to say that when we forgive, we don't have the same power? I guess that's what I'm asking. Mm-hmm. Right, so I'm kind of stating like it's a fact, but it's really a question. So obviously, I don't know. You know, it's karma, who knows, right? But if God, when he forgives, the effect is that it's like I didn't sin, then I'm assuming when I'm forgiving is the same, right? I have that power, that God-given power to wipe away the crimson, right? To make everything white. This is very powerful. And the last one, I know some of you are like, about, like on your marks, get set, right? I'm about to bounce out of the room. I have 30 seconds. Last effect is cosmic, right? In a way, you're cleansing the world when you forgive because you're not allowing whatever happened to you to go back into the world through your vengeful actions, right? As you fight back or as you enact revenge, you're making the world even more toxic. Now, in addition to what they did to you, there's what you're doing to them. And now and then whoever you're doing it to will do it to someone else and it will just snowball, right? So the last reason of forgiveness is for the sake of the cosmos, a cosmic reason. For the sake of the world, the buck stops with you, right? You're not going to perpetuate the toxicity. It stops with you. And in a way, you're cleansing the world, or you're helping to cleanse the world through the act of forgiveness, right? So when it comes to practicing it, just 1 minute, because you're like, okay, that's nice, but how do I do it, right? How do I actually forgive? How does it work? So what I told the other class is this. So I had one event. So this is very practical. There was a person who betrayed me very deeply, and I was extremely angry, hurt, whatever. And it's like that person was just in my brain like 24/7. I would think of what to tell them and what they should know and what they should realize and how could you. And so I was having these conversations, these really bad conversations all day long with this person. And then I was like, this is taking over my life. Let me find a way to forgive this person So what I would do practically, anytime the thought would come, negative thought, I would surrender it. I would be like, no, I don't want to think this. I want to choose love. I surrender the thought. I choose love. So thought will come back 2 minutes later. New thought, full of anger. Again, I surrender the thought. I choose love. And I would do this 100 times a day because the thought kept on coming every 5 minutes. But the more I practiced this, the more spaced out the thoughts became. The next day, it was every 10 minutes, thought would come. No, I don't want to think this, I choose love. So it was a choice, right? But I don't control it. I'm just wanting, right? Within a month, thought came maybe 3 times a day. After 3 months, no more thoughts, just love, right? This is how you practice forgiveness, right? It's a discipline of the mind. The thought comes, or the emotion, right? It's blended for Al-Ghazali. The thought or the negative emotion or negative thought comes, and you just surrender. I don't want to feel this anger. I don't want to feel this anxiety. I don't want to feel this sorrow. I choose love. I choose peace. And you're consciously just pushing gently away the thought and choosing something else. Just this can actually do wonders in terms of cleansing your heart and your mind. Within a few months, you will have cleansed and you will be ready to move on, right? This is how you practically do this, right? So, and it takes a while, depends how angry you are. For me, it took literally a year to really cleanse myself of that person. And then later we reconciled and we're all good now. But I had to do this work, otherwise we never would have reconciled, believe me. So that's the idea. That's what Rumi is saying, the alchemy. The discipline of constantly cleansing, detoxifying your heart so that the light, the divine light can shine, and which is the key to happiness. Once these negative thoughts are gone, you're happy. There's nothing, everything is bad outside, but you're happy inside because you're cleansed. That's the key to happiness here for Al-Ghazali. Okay, thank you guys for allowing 5 more, 10 more, I don't know, 5 more minutes.